From the headlines that move us
to plays on the field and people making a difference.
It's news, sports, and stories that keep our community alive.
This is the heartbeat of Tampa Bay.
I'm Christopher Ingram.
And I'm Misty Carson.
You are the very capable Misty Carson.
Thank you.
The lovely Miss Fazan is out on a trip in Europe.
Yes.
And she might be out of a job if she keeps leaving to go to Europe. And I have capable fill-ins like yourself and Bridget Bello.
Yeah, I feel like Europe is better than doing a podcast on a Friday afternoon.
I resent that statement. Misty, we have a great guest. A friend of mine I've known for, gosh, I don't know, a dozen years, I think. Bill Foley, William S. Foley, Esquire, Foley Family Law. Thanks for being here, Bill.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So, first of all, you're looking great.
Thank you.
And you have a job that I just kind of am perplexed. Like, why would you want that job? You do family law, which of course means a lot of divorces.
Right.
And man, that's just got to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, my first job that I got into, I was doing criminal defense and doing these other areas of law, and I like the in-court part of it, but there's less of a kind of a people component and working with people and talking with people and helping them through their issues. And I found that with family law, like you get both of it. You get the in-court part, but you can also kind of the one-to-one and just being able to help people with like normal everyday problems. So that's how I got into it.
Mm-hmm.
And do you enjoy it? I mean, it sounds like it. Like
I do.
You really enjoy it.
It's been about 20 years. So I started about 20 years ago doing it. And there's a point where any attorney looks and goes, is this really what I want to do? For the rest of my life. And I had that moment. I was sitting there with a buddy of mine and sitting there having coffee. And I realized this is what I want to do. Okay. So I've gone all in on family law. That's all I do. I don't do any other areas of law. I just stick with the interesting part in Jerry Springer side of family law.
They need to have an episode of that show Dirty Jobs with a family law attorney though.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. So when people think about family law, they think a lot about divorce, but there's also adoption, there's estates, there's wills, there's foster care systems, like there's so many other things that can go into family law. So maybe help us understand what else you can do, because I don't think that everybody
understands
knows.
that,
Yeah, no, so, and really the part that I do, which is crazy, but I do only that first part, so I really just focus on the divorce part of it and then paternity, but there is some components like domestic violence injunctions. I'll handle those kind of, especially if there's overlapping. Sometimes in a divorce case or a paternity case when they're not married, somebody will file an injunction, and then usually I'll help them out with that. We'll do name changes and things like that, but there are attorneys that specifically just do adoptions. I refer out to them. There's attorneys I refer out for estate planning, for probate. I have specified and focused my career specifically on these issues because it's just, there's no two cases that have ever been the same. I've probably talked to 5,000 different people over the years, and I've never seen the same case twice, ever. Yeah. Every single consultation, it's different. Every single set of facts and circumstances are different.
What's the most common mistake people make as they begin the process of the dissolution of a marriage?
So, number one, and if you would have asked me this a few years ago, I probably would have said something different, but I think people should speak to an attorney just to kind of understand their rights, and not just me, I'm just saying in general, speak to an attorney, do your research, understand what can happen during the course of it. But now I feel like there's an over-reliance upon people's research, specifically AI.
Yes.
And I'm seeing a huge, the amount of people that are using AI like exclusively and thinking that it can replace an attorney, it's amazing. It just, that part of it just absolutely amazes me, because then they get to court.
Yeah.
In front of a judge.
The I's aren't dotted.
And you can't, so, and then they don't know what to do. And it's frustrating for me, because I look and I'm like, again, it's usually the other side that's doing that. Usually my client has realized we can't just completely rely on AI. There's components of AI that are helpful, but now people are just using it. I would almost say just too much.
Think they're a lawyer.
There's actually a massive lawsuit going on right now for someone who had relied on AI for legal advice. And now she's suing, I won't say which one, but one of the AI systems, the apps, saying that there should have been a disclaimer that this was not like legal and bindable. I mean, we can roll our eyes, but we also know that people sue McDonald's because coffee is hot.
Right.
So
'Cause
you
it's
can,
hot.
because you can, I mean, who would have thought? No one, hot coffee. So just interesting. That's good advice though to people.
Yeah, I mean, because lawyers are doing it too. They're getting in trouble because they're putting in searches, and it's popping out some cases that are hallucinated, that don't exist.
Right.
And then so the Florida bar is like, hey, you got to be using. The judges are like, these are not cases. Like, you have to do your work. You have to understand what's going on. And so that's attorneys that are falling into that trap.
Talk about negligence.
So if there's a layperson that's not an attorney that doesn't know, like, okay, this is what I need to do. If it says this case, well, this isn't making sense. Let me make sure it stands for what the proposition says it is. But again, I think there's that really interesting. My answer a few years ago would have been completely different. Now I think there's an over-reliance on that, and kind of that. Well, I'm going to hold off on actually speaking to an attorney. And then they do a lot of this stuff, and then it's when they get in too deep and they realize, or maybe they went to a hearing that went really, really wrong. Then they reach out, and then they call, and then we're having to fix things. We're having to pick up the pieces.
So then you have to go back and and do more work.
Right.
Yeah. So it's actually more costly for them.
Yeah, and I get it. It's not cheap. It's not easy. Like I understand that, but to do a consultation with an attorney that's done it for a while, again, can be anybody. Just speak with somebody, understand. Anybody with a few years of experience within family law can be able to say, hey, these are the next steps that you're going to take, and this could be what would be helpful for you.
That's really interesting.
What do you think, in your estimation, having been a family law attorney for 20 years dealing with divorces, what's the number one reason for divorce in your opinion?
Communication is huge. I mean, and I've done. I have a YouTube channel, and I've done a lot of videos of specifically communication-based issues, in relationships, and kind of like advice from a divorce lawyer type stuff. And that's one of the ones that I would say is huge. And also just from the fact that people grow, but it's logical. If you've been together with somebody for 20 years, the person that you married at 25 is going to be a completely different person at 45. And there's some people that are like, oh no, that person's not still the same person at 25. It's like, no, of course they're going to be different.
Yeah, you're not knocking down a 6-pack, right? For like two hours after you wake up in the
We
morning.
hope.
Yeah, that's true. Or if you are, that's another reason for a divorce.
That's the other side of it.
That's another reason for a divorce.
Yeah, the vices. Those are the vices are. Yeah, the vices are a huge one.
Yeah.
Alcohol, drug, gambling, mistresses, and substance abuse in general, like all that kind of stuff. Those are huge, but the communication for me is like the lowest hanging fruit of like, gosh, guys, people have changed over the years. You need to find out to figure it out.
Okay, so you talked about mistresses.
Yeah.
Do women cheat as much as men?
Of course.
Yes, absolutely. No, I've seen it enough in my career to I would say, I don't know if it's like 50-50, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah.
It is, and it, again, but that's the aspect of it of growing apart and then not communicating.
Yeah.
If you don't communicate, you're like, hey, this isn't the way I'm going. We're two different people. Like, so many things can be fixed. I tell people a lot of times, go to marital counseling, go to individual therapy, do that type of stuff. Sometimes even rather than the divorce part of it, like they'll come to me and I'm like, man, you guys are not ready yet. You're not ready yet. You need to go. You need to work on yourself a little bit. You need to see, and then figure out if you're going to come to me to do it, because this isn't necessarily the fix.
Yeah, well, people don't understand how many lives that actually affects sometimes.
Yeah.
They're only thinking about, again, we're going back to the egocentric society, right?
Yeah.
You're only thinking about yourself and or like how you're feeling in the moment, but I mean, you might be thinking about your children as well, but not to the total amplification of what this is going to mean for blowing up your world.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think people are adequately prepared for that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I've been divorced a few times.
A few times.
Yeah.
A few times.
A few times. One of them shouldn't count though. I married him when I was 16, so that I don't count that one.
You don't count that one?
No.
The world according to Misty.
No, there is no reason that an emancipated minor should be allowed to get married. That should be illegal.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So.
What
yeah.
state were you in?
Michigan.
You sure it wasn't like West Virginia?
They can listen. Michigan is West Virginia adjacent. So.
Well, there. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean.
Southern Michigan.
No, Farmtown, Michigan.
Farmtown. Okay.
Mid Michigan.
All right.
Yeah.
Well.
Small towns are small towns, right? There's not a lot of diversity of thought.
Okay.
So.
That's why I say every case is different.
Yeah. Right. Every case is different.
Well, we're just
Every
going to
case
say
is
I
different.
don't count it.
How often do you find yourself in court with divorce cases?
More just, I'm in a cycle right now where I have a lot of trials, and like in multi-day trials, like 3 and 4 day trials. So I'm in that cycle right now. So as the year goes, there's these different cycles that I see. There's an uptick in divorces, end of January and through February. There's a kind of a downward dip, in the summers, and then
I want to get that vacation out.
yeah, it's this weird, interesting. But doing it for 20 years, you see it, you understand it, you know it's going to happen. But trial cycles as well, because of judges' calendars and a whole bunch of other things. Like I'm in a heavy trial cycle, so you may talk to me at a different time. I'll be like, oh yeah, no, it's not. But I'm in the thick of it right now.
I have a super interesting question, and I may be completely off base here, but I know that when women specifically get plastic surgery, sometimes they get augmentations or they get like a mommy makeover, then that can lead to attention, and then that can lead to things, which communication, I agree. But I'm just curious if GLP-1s have affected that at all.
No, that's a good
like
question.
thinking about how that's changing.
Like the Ozempics of the world.
Yeah, like thinking about how you present a certain way to the world, but then you get like this self-confidence. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Well, I have heard similar to that if all of a sudden your spouse starts going to the gym,
Right, that's a thing.
It's leading to something.
Yes, that's a
there's
thing.
a change.
So
That
I
was
was
the
just-
old, like, okay, if there's a difference in appearance and maybe going to the gym, or it's like, okay, maybe there's some telltale
Now it's,
signs.
get a butt lift and a tummy tuck.
I don't know. That's a really good question.
Yeah, you should start tracking.
Yeah, I'm going
A/B
to try.
testing.
I'm like, so let's
Yes,
talk.
are you on GLP-1s?
We'll put that in the questionnaire now, just to say.
I was just
Have you
curious.
been to the gym? Have you got a breast augmentation?
Well, I was thinking about it a lot because we've been, looks are a thing, right?
Right.
And how you feel about yourself matters, the way you see yourself when you look in the mirror. That's why we all vow every January to get healthy. So I was just curious. I was thinking about it.
No, that's. I mean, and again, as things change, and that's like I said, AI is now such a proliferation, and it would have been different a couple of years ago. That is something as well. It's relatively newer. So it's interesting to see kind of how that's gonna play out.
Yeah.
What is the average cost of a divorce these days in Florida?
So the filing fee, just to file the case, let's say Hillsborough County, because that's, my primary downtown office is in Hillsborough, and we do stuff in Hillsborough, Pasco, Pinellas, in this area, but it's basically it's $408 to file, right? And then another $10 for a summons. So somebody can file for around $400. It's just the above that. And then the attorney's fees, and attorney's fees can range, in the 200s to, the low thousands, depending
An
upon,
hour.
You're
You're talking about an hour.
An hour
Yeah.
per hour. Yeah. So, and then depending on how much time the attorney or their staff or anybody puts into it, but, super uncontested cases where there's just not a lot of things to fight about and they just agree on things, those can be in the low thousands range that, everything can be buttoned up. But, it's cases that are contested that go all the way to multi-day trials and there's experts and things like that. You're seeing, 50,000 plus, $100,000 plus cases.
You brought up the difference between, like, do you see women also having affairs equally to as seeing men? One of the things that I know happens is that women can also be domestic violence abusers. And I don't feel like a lot of people understand that it happens more frequently than people realize.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
So how often do you see that as either a dual perpetration, because sometimes they both will be abusing each other, or that the husband is being the one who's being abused?
Sure, and I've had it where I've represented the husband in domestic violence injunctions, as the victim. and then also as the respondent, so like I've seen it really from both sides. I don't think it does depend on the situation specifically itself, but it's not, it's sometimes there's a mindset of like, oh, it's only this one thing.
Yes.
And that's also where like people have the misconception of like alimony, like, oh, well, it's only for one side. No, it's not. It's pursuant to what the statute says and the differences in the income. So the court's looking at it, and they're doing their best to look at it, blindly of like, okay, like let's look at the facts in question. Like a domestic violence injunction, it's like, here's what the facts are, here's what they said happened, you got to apply that to the law, and that's the result. No matter who, if it's male, if it's female, whatever. That's the idea, the goal for the judge to do it that way.
Does the length of a marriage have any influence on what those final settlements might be?
Yeah, so for alimony, they're looking at the law in the state of Florida. I'm not going to say blew up, but it changed so dramatically about 2 or 3 years ago, about 2.5 years ago.
The Tom Lee bill?
Yeah, so mid 2.5 years ago, like everything changed. It went to 50-50 time sharing as the presumption, which was massive, and it's helped family law attorneys significantly be able to apprise their clients of what the judges are looking for. And then also the alimony statute completely changed as well, and it gave us some parameters, because it used to be like 17 years and above permanent alimony cases. But then there was like there's no guidance for anybody of like what it should be. So now there's these specific time frames, 0 to 10 years, 10 to 20 years, 20 plus. And then they're looking at the differences in the net incomes, and you can't go over that 35% difference. So there's like a max. So now the judges, now the attorneys, now everybody can look at it and say, okay, let's look at the delta between the two net incomes, and that we can't go above that 35%. So now we actually have numbers that we can use, that we can actually counsel clients on. So that part of it, that change in the law was super, super helpful. So length of the marriage obviously dictates on that. It helps. It's just the longer sometimes people are together, the more issues than they can have. Right. So that's the flip side of it. That there's more. If somebody's coming to me and they've been married for 24 years, I mean, they probably got they got equal distribution issues. If they have kids, we got that. We got alimony. There could be some really complicated things that are baked into it. As opposed to maybe a divorce because they've been together for like 2 months and they were, went to Vegas and got married or something, and then they're like, oh, I don't.
That happens.
Or it used to be for a while, like especially the younger people that would come to me, they were like bored. They're like, they want to get divorced because they're bored. I'm like, you're bored? What? So it was an interesting like little period phase of time that kind of went away a little bit, but now it's definitely something that these longer term marriages, it's just baked in all of the different issues.
I need to know if your advice when they said they were bored was to get a hobby.
Go play golf.
Yes,
I'm like, how much did you just spend on the wedding?
Yes.
Right.
Like you just spent like $200,000 on a wedding, and then you're bored. You're bored.
That sounds entitled.
6 months.
Well, you can also blame our instant gratification society for that.
It's like things have changed. It's like it's been 6 months.
Yes.
Like
wow.
Oh my gosh.
How does Florida being a no-fault state affect divorces? Kind of explain that for our viewers.
Yeah, so most of the states have gotten away from trying to prove fault. Like when I went to law school in New York, and it was still a fault state at that point. So you had to prove, fault. You had to prove like that there was an affair. You had to prove all these different things, and it's complicated, to do that. Now with Florida, it's just, you just have to say the marriage is irretrievably broken, and that you have to be a resident of the state of Florida for more than 6 months. So the fact that it took away all that, took away the complexity of people having to prove all these different things to get it. Every state's different. Some of the states have really long waiting periods. Like you have to wait like a year, sometimes 2 years, long time. And these people are they're living separate. They're all like, it's just, that's, again, Florida's system on it isn't perfect, but a forced waiting period on it, like, I don't know how that always helps things.
Yeah.
I think it can make
That
things
sounds painful.
more
Especially if there's
complicated.
abuse
Yeah.
or
Right.
they're in prison or
No, it just doesn't make to me. But again, I'm sure the states have their reasons for why they have these long-term waiting periods. But I think New York, again, I've been in New York for a while, but I think they went away from the fault side of things, and so many other states have gone to that no fault. Just hey, if it ain't working, like let's try to get you guys through it.
Yeah.
Is it true still that 1 in every 2 marriages ends in divorce? Is that still a real, true
I think so.
statistic?
Yeah. I don't think it's gotten any. I'm not going to say any better, but I don't think it's gotten any necessarily any worse, and I don't think it's necessarily gotten any better. I think there's just so many different options out there, that people kind of, again, there's the vices, but then there's just other things, with social media and with dating apps and all these other things out there for people to be involved in.
Distracted.
So
complicated,
distractions.
Yeah.
And if they're not really wanting to work on the marriage, there was a judge, he was in the division for a little while, and he was an amazing judge, and he said it during one of the hearings. He said that you have to look at marriage as like a part-time job at the least.
Yes.
Maybe a full-time job, but you have to put that much time into it. He's like as a judge, me and my wife, we will read counseling book, like marriage books together, like working on our relationship, all these different things. We will go to seminars, we will go on retreats, we will work on it to try to do. And he's like, and I'm a divorce judge. I'm just telling you that it takes work to make this thing happen. If you don't put any work onto it, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I credit him for saying that in a courtroom about his specifics, but it was very helpful to the parties, and I've said it to other people before. Like, if you don't put any work into it, it ain't going to work.
That's right.
Good point. Well, Bill Foley with Foley Law. Do you have a website?
wfoleylaw.com.
wfoleylaw.com.
What is your
Yes.
YouTube? Because
YouTube.
people could
Oh,
use
yeah,
the
for sure.
divorce.
Yeah. So Foley Family Law. There's probably like 200 videos on there. Got a couple million views. Like, we did a lot of stuff like for celebrity divorces for a while, like Kim Kardashian and all that kind of stuff. So those are kind of interesting, but a lot of them are more just helpful information as you're going through it. Oh, I have a deposition. What does that mean?
Yes.
What happens during a deposition? I have a Zoom hearing. What does that mean? What's going to happen during a Zoom hearing? So there's some helpful information on there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah. That'd
Bill
be great.
Foley, thanks for joining us.
Thanks
Good
for
to see you,
having me.
man.
So nice to
Awesome.
meet you. Yes.
Awesome.
Every story shared
Adds another heartbeat to Tampa Bay.
from courage to community.
We're proud to tell the stories that keep our neighborhood strong. Thanks
Thanks
for watching The Heartbeat of Tampa Bay.
Good info, man.